Today is January 27th. It's the 27th day of the year, and this is the On This Day podcast. Pilot Robert Chaffee, Command Pilot Virgil Gus Grissom, and Senior Pilot Edward White have been buckled into their seats inside the Apollo 1 command module for the past 5.5 hours on this day in 1967, when at 6:31 p.m., Chaffee announces, quote, "Got a fire in the cockpit. The plugs out testing the astronauts are taking part in is necessary if NASA is going to make their launch date on February 21st. It's a crucial test to determine if the spacecraft will operate nominally on its internal power when detached from all cables and umbilicals. The launch vehicle, the Saturn 1B rocket, and the spacecraft are not loaded with fuel, and all of their pyrotechnic systems are disabled. The plugs out testing is considered non-hazardous." The Apollo 1 mission is the first in a series of manned missions to the moon, with the goal of landing a man on its surface by 1970. Grissom, White, and Chaffee have all been instrumental in NASA's space exploration endeavors prior to this. Grissom, the second American to have traveled in space aboard Liberty Bell 7, pilots the Gemini 3 spacecraft in orbit 4 years later in 1965. White, the first American to walk in space during the Gemini 4 mission, spends 36 minutes outside of the spacecraft. Chaffee has never flown in space, but he serves as capsule communicator on the ground alongside Grissom for White's Gemini 4 mission. The experience these men bring to the table is impressive. But when an unidentified electrical arc ignites in the pure, high-pressure oxygen atmosphere inside Apollo 1, all their spaceflight experience does little to help them against highly flammable conditions. What happens next is captured on Grissom's open microphone. Grissom exclaims, "Hey!" followed by 2 seconds of scuffling. Chaffee alerts the control room that there's a fire in the cockpit. Mission Control listens to the next 6.8 seconds of silence before the next transmission comes through. Though badly garbled, it sounds like White reporting, quote, "We've got a bad fire. Let's get out. We're burning up." Some can see White on a monitor reaching for the inner hatch release handle as flames in the cockpit spread from left to right. The intensity of the fire causes the pressure to rise in the command module, rupturing the inner wall. Flames and gases rush outside through open access panels. The intense heat, dense smoke, and ineffective gas masks, designed for toxic fumes rather than heavy smoke, impede rescue attempts. Since the plugs out testing was categorized as non-hazardous, no one is prepared for an emergency. Mission Control fears an explosion could kill the ground crew and destroy the launch pad. It's 30 minutes before rescuers can even get close to the module. They finally get the hatch door open. Firemen arrive 3 minutes later, followed by doctors. Apollo 1's cabin is filled with dense smoke, and the rescuers can't see anything. As the smoke gradually clears, the astronauts become visible. Grissom, his restraints removed, is lying on the floor. White's restraints have been burnt through. He lies sideways below the hatch that he was unsuccessful at opening. Internal cabin pressure makes it impossible. Fire has partially melted both astronauts' nylon spacesuits and the hoses connecting them to life support. Chaffee is still strapped in his seat, as per the procedure for him to maintain communications until White opens the hatch. A medical board will determine the astronauts die of carbon monoxide asphyxia, with thermal burns as contributing causes. It's believed death occurs in less than 1 minute. The tragedy prompts a comprehensive review by NASA. This results in several design changes that significantly improve the safety of the Apollo spacecraft. After the accident on this day in 1967, NASA Flight Director Gene Kranz addresses his Mission Control staff with a speech that will be reprised 36 years later after the Columbia Space Shuttle tragedy. Krantz tells his staff, quote, "From this day forward, flight control will be known by two words, tough and competent. Tough means we are forever accountable for what we do and what we fail to do. We will never again compromise our responsibilities. Competent means we will never take anything for granted. Mission control will be perfect. When you leave this meeting today, you will go to your office, and the first thing you will do there is write tough and competent on your blackboards. It will never be erased. Each day when you enter the room, those words will remind you of the price paid by Grissom, White, and Chaffee. These words are the price of admission to the ranks of mission control." There are 338 days left in the year. On This Day is produced by me, Dave Schultz. Thank you very much for listening. Today's episode written by Elizabeth Schultz.